Breaking news just dropped that has the entire basketball world in complete shock. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull have just made a statement that nobody saw coming, and it's sending shockwaves through the WNBA right now. What they've done for Caitlin Clark is about to change everything. And trust me, you need to hear this. But before we dive into what just happened, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about the WNBA. 2 minutes ago, chaos erupted as Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull delivered an explosive message that has the entire league scrambling. These two fierce warriors have drawn a line in the sand, and their words are echoing through every arena, every locker room, and every corner of women's basketball. The WNBA thought they could silence them, thought they could control the narrative, but Sophie and Lexie just flipped the script in the most spectacular way possible. Picture this: June 17th, 2025, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, the Indiana Fever versus the Connecticut Sun. What started as a regular game turned into the most controversial moment of the season. Caitlin Clark, the phenomenal rookie who's been breaking records left and right, suddenly found herself under attack. J.C. Sheldon's hand came out of nowhere, striking Clark directly in the eye. Not a gentle tap, not an accidental brush, but a deliberate poke that had Clark reeling in pain. But that was just the beginning. As Clark tried to defend herself, Marina Mabrey came charging in like a freight train, shoving the superstar to the ground with such force that the entire arena gasped. The crowd went silent. Fans couldn't believe what they were witnessing. The brightest star in women's basketball was lying on the hardwood floor, and the referees? They gave Clark a technical foul. Yes, you heard that right. The victim got punished while her attackers walked away with minor penalties. This is where our story takes an incredible turn. Sophie Cunningham, the 6'1" guard with a black belt in Taekwondo, had seen enough. She wasn't about to let this injustice stand. With 46 seconds left in the game, Sophie delivered her own message. When Sheldon drove to the basket, Sophie wrapped her up and sent her crashing to the floor. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't clean, but it was necessary. Sophie got ejected, but her message was crystal clear. You mess with Caitlin Clark, you mess with all of us. After the game, Sophie didn't hold back. Standing in front of reporters, her voice filled with righteous anger, she dropped a truth bomb that shook the WNBA to its core. She said, and I quote, "I think the refs had a lot to do with that. It was a build-up for a couple years now of them just not protecting the star player of the WNBA. At the end of the day, I'm going to protect my teammates. That's what I do." Think about that for a second. A couple of years? Sophie wasn't just talking about one game or one incident. She was exposing a pattern, a systematic failure by the league to protect its most valuable asset. And she wasn't done. Sophie continued, "When you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're gonna compete, and they're gonna have their teammates' backs." But here's where it gets even more interesting. Lexie Hull, the sharpshooting guard who's been Clark's best friend since day one, has been right there beside Sophie every step of the way. These three players, Clark, Sophie, and Lexie, have formed an unbreakable bond that fans are calling the Tres Leches. They've become inseparable, both on and off the court, and their chemistry is unlike anything we've seen in professional sports. Let me paint you a picture of just how tight this trio has become. Sophie recently showed up to a game wearing a custom shirt, featuring all three of their faces with Tres Leches printed across it. That's not just team chemistry, folks. That's family. That's a statement to the entire league that these three are united, and they will not be broken. The numbers don't lie, and they're absolutely shocking. Caitlin Clark has been on the receiving end of 17% of all flagrant fouls in the entire WNBA. Let that sink in. One player, 17% of the league's most violent fouls. And get this, the Chicago Sky alone are responsible for 80% of those fouls against Clark. If that doesn't scream targeted harassment, I don't know what does. Sophie Cunningham's transformation has been nothing short of miraculous. Before defending Clark, she had around 200,000 followers on social media. Within days of that infamous ejection, she exploded to over 1 million followers. People aren't just watching basketball anymore, they're witnessing a revolution, and Sophie is leading the charge. Here's something that will blow your mind. Sophie Cunningham isn't just some random teammate who decided to step up. She's a warrior. Literally, she earned her black belt in Taekwondo at age 6. 6 years old, folks. She was the first female in history to score points for her high school football team, kicking extra points and handling kickoffs. This woman was born to fight, and now she's fighting for Caitlin Clark. The Connecticut Sun's coach had the audacity to call Sophie's actions disrespectful and stupid. But you know what's really disrespectful? Allowing your players to physically assault the league's biggest star without consequences. You know what's really stupid? Thinking that Sophie and Lexie would stand by and watch it happen. Fever coach Stephanie White didn't mince words either. She called out the officials directly, saying they lost control of the game and that this has been happening all season long. She warned the refs in the first quarter that something was going to happen if they didn't get control, and guess what? She was right. But let's talk about Lexie Hull for a moment, because her role in all this is equally powerful. When Clark was ruled out of the All-Star three-point contest due to injury, who did the league choose to replace her? Lexie Hull. And while some fans initially questioned the decision, Lexie proved she belonged there, shooting 47% from three-point range, fourth best in the entire league. The bond between these three goes way beyond basketball. When they're not on the court, they're hanging out together, supporting each other through everything. When Lexie got engaged, Clark and Sophie were right there celebrating with her. When Sophie hit 1 million followers, Clark was the first to congratulate her. When Clark needs protection on the court, Sophie and Lexie transform into an impenetrable shield. Here's what makes this situation even more explosive. The WNBA is at a crossroads. Caitlin Clark has single-handedly increased viewership by unprecedented numbers. When she was injured and missed games, the league lost nearly half its viewers. Ticket prices dropped from $89 to $25. She's not just a player, she's the lifeblood of the league's recent success. Yet despite all this, the WNBA continues to allow her to be targeted, attacked, and brutalized on the court. It's like they're actively trying to drive away their golden goose. And Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull have had enough. They're not just defending a teammate anymore, they're fighting for the future of women's basketball. The parallels to Michael Jordan's early career are impossible to ignore. Jordan faced similar treatment from the Detroit Pistons' bad boys in the late 80s. They beat him up, knocked him down, tried to break his spirit, but you know what the NBA did? They changed the rules. They protected their star. They understood that Jordan wasn't just good for the Chicago Bulls, he was good for basketball. And look what happened. The NBA exploded into a global phenomenon. Sophie Cunningham sees this clearly. She's studied the game, she understands history, and she knows that if the WNBA doesn't protect Caitlin Clark, they're signing their own death warrant. That's why she's willing to get ejected, to take the fines, to be called dirty or aggressive. She's playing the long game, and she's playing to win. The chemistry between these three is electric. During games, you can see them constantly communicating, encouraging each other, having each other's backs. Sophie brings the fire and intensity, Lexie provides the steady sharpshooting and defensive versatility, and Clark orchestrates everything with her incredible court vision and scoring ability. Together, they're unstoppable. But here's where the story takes another dramatic turn. Rumors are swirling that overseas teams are preparing to offer Clark contracts worth millions of dollars. Elite leagues in Europe and Asia are watching this situation closely, ready to swoop in and steal the WNBA's biggest star. They're promising not just money, but respect, protection, and the treatment a superstar deserves. Can you imagine the WNBA without Caitlin Clark? The league would lose its momentum, its growing fan base, its cultural relevance. Everything they've built over the past year would crumble. And Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull know this. That's why they're fighting so hard. They're not just protecting a friend, they're trying to save the league from itself. The social media reaction has been overwhelming. Fans are creating videos, memes, and posts celebrating Sophie and Lexie as heroes. The hashtag #ProtectCaitlinClark has trended multiple times. People who never watched women's basketball before are now tuning in just to see these three play together. The Tres Leches have become a cultural phenomenon. Sophie recently launched a podcast where she's been even more outspoken about the situation. She's not holding back anymore, calling out specific players, specific teams, and specific officials who have failed to do their jobs. She's become the voice of a movement, and that movement is growing stronger every day. Here's something that really puts this in perspective. Sophie Cunningham could have played it safe. She could have avoided confrontation, collected her paycheck, and stayed out of trouble, but she chose to fight. She chose to stand up for what's right. And in doing so, she's inspired not just her teammates, but young players everywhere who are watching and learning that standing up for your teammates isn't just acceptable, it's essential. Lexie Hull's quiet strength has been equally important. While Sophie is the enforcer, Lexie is the stabilizer. She's there with a word of encouragement when Clark gets frustrated, a defensive stop when the team needs it most, and a clutch three-pointer to swing momentum. Her 47% three-point shooting isn't just a statistic. It's a weapon that forces defenses to respect her, creating more space for Clark to operate. The Indiana Fever's locker room has become a fortress of solidarity. Players who might have been content to stay quiet are now speaking up, inspired by Sophie and Lexie's courage. The entire team has rallied around Clark, creating a protective bubble that opponents are learning to fear. But let's be real about what's at stake here. This isn't just about one player or one team. This is about the future of women's professional basketball in America. The WNBA has a chance to become a major sports league, to rival the established men's leagues in popularity and revenue, but that only happens if they protect and promote their stars. Sophie Cunningham understands this better than anyone. In interviews, she's talked about growing up on a farm, learning the value of hard work and loyalty. She's brought that farm-strong mentality to the basketball court, and she's not backing down from anyone. When she says she'll protect her teammates, she means it with every fiber of her being. The league's response to all this has been predictably weak. They've issued some fines, made some vague statements about player safety, but nothing substantial has changed. Meanwhile, Clark continues to get hammered game after game, and Sophie and Lexie continue to be her only real protection. Here's a stat that should terrify the WNBA. Since Sophie Cunningham joined the Fever and became Clark's protector, the team's merchandise sales have skyrocketed. Sophie's jersey sales increased by 400%, Lexie's by 300%. Fans aren't just supporting players, they're supporting a cause. They're voting with their wallets, and the message is clear: protect your stars or lose your fans. The transformation of Sophie Cunningham from role player to folk hero has been remarkable to watch. She's embraced her role as the enforcer, the protector, the one who does the dirty work so Clark can shine. And she's done it with style, humor, and an unshakable confidence that has made her a fan favorite. But here's the thing about Lexie Hull that people don't realize. She's been preparing for this moment her entire career. A Stanford graduate with incredible basketball IQ, she understands the game at a level most players never reach. She saw what was happening to Clark before anyone else did, and she was ready to stand up when the moment came. The three of them together, Clark, Sophie, and Lexie, represent something bigger than basketball. They represent loyalty, friendship, and the power of standing together against injustice. In a world where athletes often put individual success above team unity, these three are showing us a different way. The impact extends beyond the court. Young girls watching these games are learning that it's okay to stand up for yourself and your friends. They're learning that strength comes in many forms, whether it's Clark's incredible skill, Sophie's fierce protection, or Lexie's steady support. This is the kind of role modeling that changes lives. As we speak, the pressure on the WNBA is mounting. Major sponsors are reportedly reconsidering their partnerships if the league doesn't take concrete steps to protect its players. The Players Association is rumbling about potential action. Something has to give. And Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull are making sure it happens sooner rather than later. The message from Sophie and Lexie is clear. The days of Caitlin Clark facing these battles alone are over. They've drawn their line in the sand, and they're daring anyone to cross it. This isn't just about protecting one player anymore. This is about changing the culture of the entire league. The WNBA has a choice to make, and they need to make it fast. They can continue down this path, lose their biggest star, and watch their growing popularity evaporate. Or they can listen to Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull, protect their players, and build something truly special. The clock is ticking, and the whole basketball world is watching. What Sophie and Lexie have done isn't just brave, it's revolutionary. They've turned a moment of injustice into a movement for change. They've shown that teammates aren't just people you play basketball with, they're family you fight for. And they've proven that sometimes the most important plays happen off the stat sheet. This is just the beginning. Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull have ignited something that can't be stopped. The protection of Caitlin Clark has become a rallying cry for everyone who believes in fairness, justice, and the future of women's basketball. The revolution isn't coming, folks. It's already here. So what do you think about Sophie Cunningham and Lexie Hull standing up for Caitlin Clark? Are they heroes or are they taking things too far? Let me know in the comments below. And if you support what they're doing, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on this developing story. The future of women's basketball is being written right now, and you don't want to miss what happens next.